My heart was racing. I stared at my phone screen at the number that shouldn't have been there, 3,640. My hand was shaking. I read it again and again. This couldn't be real. But it was. And 5 days earlier, I had started writing something in a cheap $2 notebook. If you want to know how I manifested the exact amount of money I needed, stick with me until the end, because I'm going to show you the simple technique I use that you can do too. My name is Ethan Miller. I was 34 years old and living alone in Tampa, Florida, in one of those apartments you rent because it works, not because you like it. The AC made a constant noise, like a hum that I stopped hearing after a while. Every morning, I'd wake up to the smell of cheap coffee I made myself in an old coffee maker, and I'd leave for work before 7. I was a building maintenance technician at a commercial complex, changed light bulbs, unclogged sinks, fixed locks. Honest work, but invisible. People only saw me when something broke. The credit card started as temporary support, just until the end of the month. But the end of the month turned into 3 months. 3 turned into 12. And suddenly, I was only paying the minimum, watching the interest grow while pretending I had everything under control. I still thought the problem was just money, not the way I was thinking about it. The bank notification always came at the worst time, like at 9 at night, when I was already trying to relax on the couch. The sound was always the same, that sharp ding that made my stomach tighten before I even looked at the screen. Your minimum payment is due in 3 days. 3 days. I had 3 days to come up with money I didn't have. The worst part wasn't the amount itself. It was the cycle. Every month, the same thing. I'd pay the minimum thinking I was dealing with the problem, but the total balance never went down. Actually, it grew. The interest was like quicksand. The more I tried to get out, the deeper I sank. My APR had gone up again. 23%. I didn't even know it could go that high. I started avoiding calls from unknown numbers, turned off my phone's sound during lunch. When my friends talked about weekends at Clearwater Beach or some new show at Amalie Arena, I'd just nod and change the subject. They thought I was reserved. I felt invisible. At night, before sleeping, I'd open the bank app, always, as if looking at the balance would change something, as if the number would magically improve. But it never did. There was one specific night, a Tuesday, I think, when I realized I needed at least $450 in less than a week, not to pay off the entire debt, just to keep everything from getting worse. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, and felt that weight in my chest. It wasn't just fear of not having money, it was shame. Shame of myself. Shame of being a 34-year-old man who couldn't pay off a credit card. I worked every day, woke up early, did my job right, and still it felt like I was failing as an adult. Like everyone around me had figured out some secret I didn't know. That night, lying in the dark with the sound of the AC in the background, I thought, there has to be a way out, something I'm not seeing. It was that night, exhausted and out of options, that I heard about something called 55x5. I was scrolling through my YouTube feed that night, not looking for anything specific, just trying to shut my mind off. That's when a video appeared with a simple title. I manifested $5,000 in 5 days using this method. Normally I would have skipped it, seemed like clickbait, but something made me click. The person in the video wasn't dramatic, didn't promise miracles. They just explained a technique called 55x5. Write an affirmation 55 times a day for 5 consecutive days. The idea was simple. Focus the mind, create emotional repetition, train the brain to see solutions instead of problems. My first reaction was skepticism. Right, writing in a notebook is going to pay my debt, but there was one phrase in the video that stuck in my head. Your brain can't solve problems when it's in survival mode. You need to calm the system first. Survival. That was exactly what I felt. I wasn't thinking about solutions. I was just reacting every day on autopilot, so I decided to try. Not because I believed, but because I had nothing left to lose. The next day after work, I stopped at a Walgreens and bought a cheap notebook, one of those spiral ones with a blue cover. Cost $2 and change. I went back home, sat at the kitchen table, and wrote the phrase I had decided on. I am financially free and at peace with money. Simple, direct, no specific numbers, no unrealistic dates. I started writing. The first line felt strange. I felt ridiculous. By the 10th line, my hand was already tired. By the 30th, I started getting into a rhythm. And when I finished all 55, something changed. I didn't feel rich, didn't feel euphoric, but something slowed down inside me. On the second day, I woke up and the first thing I thought was, I need to write those 55 lines. It wasn't excitement. It was more like a silent commitment I had made to myself. I sat down again at the kitchen table with the coffee still hot in my mug and started. I am financially free and at peace with money. This time it was easier. My mind didn't fight as much. And when I finished, I noticed something strange. I hadn't checked my bank balance yet. Normally, that was the first thing I did when I woke up. On the third day, the change became clearer. I was at work changing the air filter in an office when my boss mentioned overtime available for the weekend. Before, I would have ignored it. Too tired, I would have thought. But this time, I said yes, without hesitation. That night, I sat down to write the 55 lines again. And while I wrote, I started noticing things. I opened my email, something I'd been avoiding for weeks, and saw 3 subscriptions I didn't even remember I was paying for. Spotify Premium that I wasn't using. A fitness app I downloaded and forgot about. A news subscription that renewed automatically. I canceled everything. It was $28 a month just leaving my account. It wasn't much, but it was something. On the 4th day, I was calmer, less reactive. I went to a Publix after work, bought only what I needed, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel that tightness in my chest when I looked at the total at checkout. I wasn't manifesting money out of thin air, but I was making different decisions. Small ones, practical, aligned. When I sat down to write that night, I realized the phrase no longer seemed strange. It was starting to make sense in my body, not just my head. I am financially free and at peace with money. I still didn't completely believe it, but I also wasn't fighting the idea anymore. And then, as I finished the last line, my phone vibrated on the table, an email notification. The subject line was generic. Payment processed, refund issued. I almost ignored it. Looked like spam. But something made me open it. I opened the email. The subject line said, "Final notice, claim your settlement. Case 2024 CLF 8847. I almost deleted it. Looked like one of those scams everyone gets, but something made me read it. It was from a legitimate law firm. A class action settlement, a collective agreement against a bank I had used years ago. Apparently, they had charged improper fees to millions of customers between 2019 and 2022. The case had been resolved, and I was entitled to compensation. The email said this was the last chance to file the claim. The final deadline was in 3 days. My heart raced. I opened the link, checking every detail to make sure it wasn't phishing. The site was real, had the case number, the judge's name, everything official. I entered my information, answered a few simple questions, and then it appeared on the screen. Estimated settlement amount $3,640 growler, $3,640. I froze, read it again, 3 times, 4 times. I clicked submit claim. The screen loaded for a few seconds that felt like an eternity, and then, your claim has been successfully submitted. Payment will be processed within 7 to 10 business days. I dropped my phone on the table, got up, walked to the window, looked at the empty street below with the streetlights on and the distant sound of cars passing by. I came back, picked up my phone again. The confirmation was still there. I went to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a pile of old papers I kept. Old bills, statements, correspondence I never opened. And then I saw it. An envelope from the same law firm, dated 4 months ago. I had received this notice, by mail, and completely ignored it. Thought it was spam, junk, just another company trying to sell me something. But it wasn't. It was exactly what I needed to cover the card minimum and still have some left over. The money hadn't appeared out of nowhere. It was already there, waiting. I just wasn't seeing it. My mind was so locked in survival mode that I couldn't even process real opportunities. The money was already mine. It was just stuck, forgotten, invisible, and now it had come back. I sat down again, looking at the notebook still open on the kitchen table. The 55 lines I had written that night. I am financially free and at peace with money. In that moment, I understood that the money didn't appear. It came back. 7 days later, the money hit my account. I was at work when the notification came. I stopped what I was doing, went to the bathroom, locked the door, and opened the bank app. Deposit, $3,640, settlement payment. My hand was shaking holding the phone. That same night, I sat on the couch with my laptop, opened the credit card website, looked at the total balance, $3,147, took a deep breath, and paid it. Not the minimum, not half. I paid almost all of it, just left a small margin so I wouldn't completely zero out my bank account. I clicked Confirm Payment. The screen loaded, and then it appeared, Payment successful, new balance, $207 were. $207. I could pay that next month, easy. No crazy interest, no weight in my chest. I closed the laptop, lay down on the couch, and for the first time in over a year, I breathed without feeling that tightness. The weight was gone. It wasn't just financial, it was physical. Like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks on my back all this time, and finally someone had taken it off me. I looked at the blue notebook on the table. I had completed the 5 days, 55 lines, 5 times. 275 times I wrote, I am financially free and at peace with money. And now, for the first time, that was true. But the craziest part wasn't the money. It was the clarity. The 5555 method hadn't created $3,000 out of thin air. It had reorganized my mind. It had taken me out of constant panic and put me in a state where I could think, act, see. I canceled subscriptions, accepted overtime, opened emails I'd been avoiding. I went from reactive mode to solution mode. And that envelope that had been in my drawer for 4 months, if it had arrived 6 weeks earlier, I would have thrown it in the trash without even opening it. But on the 4th day of 55x5, I opened it. It wasn't coincidence, it was coherence. The revenge wasn't against anyone. It was against the anxious, stuck Ethan who thought there was no way out. That guy died. And in his place, someone was born who knew there's always a solution. You just need to be calm enough to see it. And that's when I realized anyone could do the same. Today, when someone asks me if I believe in manifestation, I say, yes, but not the way you imagine. Manifestation isn't magic. It's quantum physics applied to focus. It's neuroscience. It's you getting out of survival mode and entering a state where your brain can process information clearly. The law of attraction works when your nervous system relaxes, when you stop reacting and start responding, when you create mental space to see what was always there. The money that changed my life didn't come from outside. It already existed, but I was too blind, too anxious, too stuck to see it. The 55x5 gave me 5 days of clarity, and clarity is everything. You don't need to believe in miracles. You just need to get out of desperation, because in desperation, you don't solve problems. You just react to them, and the solution? It's closer than you think. If this story spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and tell me in the comments, what are you trying to manifest right now?